Okay, looks like we're pretty much all set. Just a few more seconds to go, so let's do this. Let's go. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Pierre, your host. I hope you're all doing okay. Today is Friday, so spirits should be up. I know they are with me. Looking forward to the weekend. So, my friends, before we start off our day, let's go over to the computer right over there. Let's check out what we did yesterday, and then we'll tackle our day from there. So, what did we do yesterday? Well, I know that it was a very short day because we started off by putting on a second coat of that gray paint on the background to hide all the brush strokes. And then we thought we could make some advances on the bottom part of our painting until we realized like we couldn't go any further than that because we needed this to be dry. And then today I want to add a couple of nuclear towers on my painting. So that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to do this nuclear, one tower here, one tower there. Then we're going to add some shading to our background. So I know these nuclear towers, well, I've been painting them for years, warning people, be careful, but it's not because all is quiet on the Western Front that the war is over. I don't want to be negative, but it's a catastrophe waiting to happen again, especially with all the climate changes and the weather changes that we're seeing happening more violently and more frequently every year. I mean, you take Fukushima in Japan, that catastrophe happened because of a tsunami, right? Because of a huge wave that screwed up the coastline. So I'm still very worried about that. I think it's going to be one of the great problems of the 21st century. That, and of course, with the Roman Empire falling to pieces because of the Republican Party. Those are my two biggest worries right now, the end of democracy and nuclear catastrophes. So anyways, with that very happy tune, let's continue to paint. And I am going to make myself some gray, a little bit, maybe a little bit lighter and darker than our background. And, well, we'll see. So I've been already quite busy this morning. I've been just transferring a lot of white paint from a container with this kind of a very small opening. It was a big jar too of this kind of paint, and I transferred my white paint into this larger jar, which is much more accessible when you get to the bottom of it. So I've done that already just a few minutes ago. Like that, it gave me time to wash my hands because I had white paint all over the place. So anyways, so let's start off then by putting a little bit of white on my palette. I guess I don't need this anymore. There we go. And we'll add a little bit of black paint as well, just to make a little gray. I'm going to start off with a little bit of light gray and then darker gray. This will take two coats, so we're just going to do the outline, the first coat today, and then we're going to do the shadowing. And then I'm not sure, and then maybe we can continue on the bottom. I don't know. We'll see. Let's take things one step at a time. And so we got the white paint. Now I need the black paint. There we go. So just a little bit of black paint that I'm going to put on the side. And we're going to have to dose things very carefully because the whole painting is going to be a variation of grays, so I have to little by little figure out what goes with what and how to do things. I'm doing a lot of grays because my last painting was just so intensive colors that kind of burnt my eyeballs out. Why doesn't this close? There we go. Okay, so where am I here? Blabbing and talking and whatever. So I need the right kind of paintbrush to do this. And what is going to be the right kind of paintbrush? Maybe I'll start off with this, at least to get the white and black, the gray to be the right texture, because my white paint is very thick here. I noticed needs quite a bit of water to make it into a nice texture that just kind of glides on the painting the way it should. So I just have to kind of work it over. I'm going to just do the white for right now, and then I'll bring in a little bit of the black to make some gray. I'm going to start off with a light gray, and then we'll do the darker gray right after that. The light gray will be just basically to draw the whole thing on the canvas. Yeah, it's kind of a drag, you know, to always have to worry about things that you worried about 30, 40 years ago, talked about 40 years ago, and nothing happened. Nobody believed in climate change, in the nuclear, until the day it happens, you know. It's like with wearing these masks. I've been painting guys with masks for like 30 years, if not more. And it isn't until like a year ago that everybody, as soon as we had to wear the mask because of COVID, everybody was writing me emails and whatever saying like I predicted this years ago and blah, blah, blah. But I'd rather not predicted anything and not have to. I would rather paint happier shit than that, but whatever. Okay, so here's my gray. Is this going to be a lighter? I think it is. Is it going to be too light? I don't think so. So let's get the first coat of this done, and then we'll worry about the rest. So I want this to be nice and, so let's see. Let me concentrate here. Just going to do it a little bit like, just like that. And I'm jumping the gun. Let me bring in camera number 1 a little bit closer. Can't believe I didn't do that yet. I can see I'm just concentrating more on what I want to paint. So something like that. I'm also going to plug in the power to the camera, that I won't have to worry about it shutting off halfway through. There we go. So that should do that. Let me go over to camera number 1 then. Then this area here is just going to go down like something like that. Then this area here is the one that I like to be nice and just like that. These are just the outlines, and then this. There we go. So that is the first outline. Have a little bit of a fracture right in there. There we go. Okay, well, there's the outline of our first nuke. And then let's get over on this side, and we're going to do a symmetrical one as well. So let me move this a little more to the side like that. There we go. This one can be kind of that. And this one I'd like it to be just like that. Okay, very good. Oops, too much water on my brush there, apparently. It doesn't matter because all this is going to be in darker gray in a few minutes anyways. There we go. So now we got our 2 nuclear towers done. I can bring this back a little bit. Now we'll let that dry, the towers dry, and now we can work on the shading. That's what I'm going to do next. It's a good idea. So let me grab a brush for my shading. This looks like the right kind of brush. Put this to soak for a few seconds, and I'm going to just reuse that same gray, except I'm going to add a little bit more black to it to have it slightly darker than our background gray. But at the same time, I want to be careful. I don't want it to be too overwhelming, which, because again, I keep saying this almost all the time, but when the paint dries, it has a tendency to darken. So I always have to kind of keep that in mind as well when I'm mixing some colors as well, you know, not just the grays, but the colors also. So I'm going to need a little bit more white paint. And I'm not really going to be painting on, I'll just be dabbing with my brush just to make these little highlights. And then on top of that, we're going to be putting some details. Then on top of that, we're going to be putting on my little planets. And on top of that, we're going to be painting leaves. So this is really, we're just working on the background. Okay, got that done. Got a little more white paint here. Grab a little bit of water because it's going to be nice and stiff like before. And then I'm going to add again a little bit of black just to make it darker than our background here. There we go, just a little bit darker. There we go. Bring in some water because it's still extremely stiff. I'd hate to run out of paint halfway through. So what's this look like? Let's go over here and we can test this together on a little portion of our painting. I'll just go right in here. Let's see if this is a little bit darker. It looks like almost the same color. So I'm going to add just a little bit tad of black. Not much, because I can tell that of course, if I don't switch cameras, you can't see anything as well. That doesn't help much. So why don't I just go onto double cameras like that? I don't have to worry that you won't see what's going on. I'm going to just add a little bit more black. And then we'll do another little test run. Still doesn't look like I'm going to have enough paint here. Maybe it's because I'm spreading it all over my palette. Let me concentrate everything in one area here. So let's go back to our testing ground right over here. Well, you can't really see the difference, can you? You can't see the difference. Does that mean it's going to darken to be a little bit different? I don't know. I'm just going to add a little more black to it. I think that will be enough because I think, as I mentioned, when it dries, it's going to get a little bit darker. So let me just, yeah, you see right there is a lot darker. Let me even get some of this off. Just like that. Okay. So, pull the camera back a little bit, move it up. That is the area we're going to be working on. There we go. I'm going to use as much as I can of what I have here because I'm afraid if I go back to my palette, it's going to darken too much. So I'm going to use as much as what I have on my brush, which seems to be just the right amount of shadowing that I want. Right away, the shadowing adds so much more to the background. Gives it so much more depth and richness. And when I look back at my paintings that I did on paper and glued in the street, my posters, they didn't have this kind of shading in them. They were just all flat colors. And I like that a lot as well. I must admit, nice flat colors doesn't bother me that much. So let's come back to the beginning where we started over here, because that looks a little dark. So I'm going to see if I can't go over this with the lighter, just to lighten this area right here, which is where we started off with. So it's not quite as dark. There we go. So that looks okay. It's going to darken up quite a bit, but it doesn't matter. There's going to be so much on top of that we don't really care. So that said, of course, my towers aren't dry yet. We just painted those a few seconds ago. That's what I miss already about summer. that in the summertime I could have my fan here blasting in full blast, and they would dry everything so quickly that I just could keep painting rather than having to wait for things to dry. When I didn't used to stream, I would just go into my little living room back here. I would play a video game for an hour or half an hour or whatever, come back out, everything would be dry and I could keep painting. But when I'm streaming live like this, I don't have that option. So, and I already put my fan away in my storage room. I don't really want to bring it out because it's kind of chilly. It's damp in the studio already. Not that cold, of course. Won't get cold really till end of December. I mean, I'll be cold, but I mean, we're warriors, right? We're tough. So not that big of a deal. But to have a fan on, well, we're not crazy either. So we'll make do with what we have. And I'm going to at least get the paint ready for the next phase of our nuclear thing. I'm just going to make this a little bit darker. And I'm going to assume I'm going to use the same paintbrush. I want to get it in between that and that. So let's work on this. First of all, like usual, I'm going to have to start off with adding some more white paint and then dosing the black paint to find the right hue. So, up. Let's keep our tools clean. There we go. Tools are clean. Okay. Let's just work on this paint. So I want this gray to be a little bit darker, but not too dark because there's going to be a lot of stuff on top of that. So I don't want everything to get too dark too quickly. That is awfully, awfully thick. Add some more water to all this. And I'm probably going to have to add a little more black paint as well. I mean, the differences are so subtle in these grays that that's one of the reasons why I'm not doing this on camera, because I'm not sure the camera would show the slight differences. When there's a lot of contrast, no problem. But when it's very subtle, I'm not sure how well it transcribes. Already, even though everything stays the same in the studio, from one day to the other, I have a feeling the camera's a little lighter or there's a little more contrast. Never quite the same. Is it because of the light outdoors that's shifting? I have no idea. Plus, on Sunday, we're changing our hours, right? We're advancing the hours for 1 hour, I think. So that's going to change the light as well. So what do I have here? Let me just do a little test. And this is indeed not going to be dark enough. So no big deal. Whip out the old black paint. Get the old knife out. I don't need that much. I'll just put a little bit right on the edge. Just like that. Again, keeping the knife clean right away. Oops. Matter, I've got plenty of rags. There we go. So let's work this now. Just add a little more black paint. Blend all this in so it's nice and homogeneous. We don't have any ugly streaks. So is this going to be dark enough now? I'm going to test this in a second. Just want to make sure I have enough for both towers here. Even though there isn't much of a surface, I must admit, it's maybe what, 8 square inches? Which isn't that much. So let me just do a little test right here. Is this going to be dark enough? Well, that's going to dry darker than that. But still, I think it needs to be just a hair darker. Let's grab a little bit more of this black paint. I'll bring in this camera here to make sure I don't forget to do that. As I'll get that ready now. You can see my shadowing already darkening very much. I wasn't kidding when I said it darkens when it dries. You can see right now what I meant. Okay, so I think this is going to be fine. Let me just get rid of the excess paint on my brush so I don't have my fingers in wetness. It feels always kind of bizarre, awkward. So let's go to camera number 1 and let's add the darker side of these towers. And of course, there's going to be the outline eventually when it's all done, so. There we go. Will I need a second coat for this? That's a good question. I have no idea. I'll have to see how this looks when it's dry. Okay, there's our first tower. And let's go back over here to our second tower right here. Let me move this over a little bit to the side so I'm not in front of the lens. All right. I don't have to get this close to the wrecked city because there will be more details going on top of this, but seems like I can never help myself. Always have to hug the line. So there's tower number 2. Just step back and take a look. Yeah, there's a lot of glare from that upper light, isn't there? I should start painting with turning the light off, maybe. But anyway, so there we have it. Okay. Now we get to that part where I can't do anything more. Is just a drag. And what's bothering me now is that my shadowing, I find my shadowing to be too dark. It bothers me. It bothers me because I have a lot of other details to go on top of that. And I was hoping like my shadowing would be more discreet. So am I able, can I add some white paint and try to make this lighter and go on top of that? Well, you know what? I'm going to try. I'm going to try because if I can make that a little bit lighter, by Monday I will be a lot happier to continue on this painting. So I'm just going to grab some of that gray that we just made a few seconds ago here. And I'm going to add quite a bit of white to that to make it a lot lighter. And I'll go back on top of that shadowing. I'm going to at least attempt to lighten it as much as I can. It's just important to have the background looking good. And after all, it's almost one of the most important. If you screw up the background, the rest of the painting will never look right to you. At least to me. So that's why I take usually a lot of time on my backgrounds, even if it is like 2 coats and then a 3rd coat and some shadowing, a lot of details. It's because I really like to get my backgrounds to look good. So I added quite a bit of white paint. This should lighten things up quite a bit, maybe even too much. But at this point, I'd rather have a very light background than too dark. I'm talking about the shadowing, of course. So there, I made it quite a bit lighter. I'd rather start from scratch again. So let me grab some of this. Just a little bit of black that I'm going to add. And we are going to go back to square 1 here. Let me mix all this up. So this is quite a bit lighter. Let me go back over here. Let's get back to our shadowing right here. I'm going to go back on top of it. But you can see it's a lot lighter. It's almost the color of the background. I'd rather do it like that than to have this dark shadows, too dark. Just going to go back on top of it and see what happens. First of all, I guess I had the camera on. That might help. I'm going to shut off that overhead light as well. Just to get rid of that glare, maybe. Zoom in over like that. I know there's going to be a lot of stuff on top of all of this. You'll probably never see the shadowing with all the details and the plants and whatnot. But for the time being, that's all I do see. So and since there's nothing else I can do anyways today, I might as well do things right. Just bring the camera over again. Tend to always forget to move it around. Oh, I didn't even switch cameras. Wonderful. Okay, concentrating on so many other things. Okay, so there we are. There we have it. So we'll still see the shadowing, but I think it's going to be a lot more discreet, and that is a good thing. So Monday, what are we going to do on Monday? Monday, we're going to add the details, first part of the details to the background. Again, we could work on this part here, but I think we should wait and see what's going to happen with our towers, if our towers are going to dry or if we're going to have to put a second coat or not. If we're going to have to put a second coat, I don't want to do the next part of the wrecked cities. So it looks like to me we have come to the end of our stream. Let me just come over here for a second, turn the light back on. Even though it does make a glare on the painting, it does make the room a lot lighter for me to look in, to work in. I think that's going to work out okay. I just wish I could paint a lot longer. I know it's Friday and I can't wait to start my weekend. When I'm in the studio, I kind of, once I start working, I hate stopping. I wish I had if I had a larger studio, I was thinking about this earlier, if I had a larger studio, I could work on 2 paintings at the same time. Like that, instead of doing an hour stream, I could do a 3-hour stream, but I guess an hour is plenty anyways. So, I guess we come to the conclusion of this week, conclusion of this new painting, and the beginning the beginning of a new painting. So once again, I want to thank you for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed this short session of painting. Basically what it gives, let me move out of the way. This is what it looks like from camera number 1. So it's starting to take shape. You can see a little bit of the shading. Fortunately, we got that extreme back. But anyways, so I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. I hope you'll join me on Monday. We'll be here at 9 a.m. Eastern Time or 3 p.m. if you're in Europe. We're moving our schedules, our hour, I think, further right on Sunday. So if you don't, so what would that do in the States if you don't move your, we'll be here at 8 a.m. instead of 9 a.m.? Or is it 10 a.m.? I don't know. Anyways, we'll be here at one point or another. So anyways, I want to wish you once again a great weekend. I'm going to leave you like usual with my schedule and by saying, ciao mes amis.